Welcome back to another episode of Diggity Podcast. We have a very, very special show today. We are joined by the lovely Holden McNeely from Wizard and the Bruiser and Page 7.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
And then I still have Nick with me, too. He's here.
That's fucked up, man.
I'm sorry.
No,
but
I'm the least important thing in this episode, and I fucking get that.
Right now, neither of us matter. This is entirely focused on Holden. I'm sure no pressure, right?
Oh, yeah. No, it's all good. I got this. I'll keep the ball up in the air, you know.
Perfect. So
for Holden, there's no pressure.
Right. For us,
we have to make sure
pressure.
we don't make...
Oh, I'm judging the shit out of you guys
Absolutely
right now.
fair.
This is everything you say, everything in your backgrounds, all of it. Just the constantly taking notes, especially the plethora of Funko Pops.
Oh, God. I know. That's one thing I need to get out of the background. It was something I collected for a long time, and I'm like in the process of selling them all. And yeah, somebody always comments on it, though. It's like, hey, you got a lot of Funkos back there. And I feel the judgment.
I want to do an episode on Funkos. I want to get to the bottom of this Funko Pop.
Fair enough.
Well, you got Funko Pop chic going on. Holden's got very nice white house chic.
I've got nothing chic, just clear, empty. No, I was just explaining to them. I'm literally been delegated to the space between my bathroom and my bedroom in the back of the apartment as my daughter, my baby, has taken over the what used to be my office, my fucking cool ass dude bro hangout space. It's more than a man cave. It was like it was a playa's fantasy in there. But yeah. Now I'm just back in the bedroom, but still. So you guys doing way better, even, Funko Pops and all, please.
Yeah, but I have in the basement smoked an entire carton of Marlboro Reds chic going on, dingy shit floor. It's cool though, man. It's
you
cool.
have what I definitely would have been super intimidated, but wanted to be your friend really bad when I was in high school. You know what I mean?
Man,
dude, we gotta fucking hang out. You were like that guy that was really in, from based on your background, that dude who was super into Tool and Bill Hicks, and we just wanted so bad to make him think we were cool, and it always failed, because we were trying too hard.
No, I was the nerdy. No, I was the nerdy weird kid who got bullied a fuck ton. So when I was 17, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna get my last name tattooed on my back. And everyone's like, that sucks and you suck. And I went, now I have to get a face tattoo to counteract the shitty back tattoo.
Come on, guys! I smoke cigarettes, Marlboro Reds, even. Yeah,
I'm cool, man. I'm cool. So, just in case somehow someone knows who we are but doesn't know who you are, can you give just a little bit of a background on who you are, what you do, and just kind of what's going on? I mean, Nick and I are very familiar with it. We've listened to you for years now, but for the people listening here, you want to give a little bit of an explanation?
Yeah, I'm going to start with the present and go backwards. So currently, I do 2 podcasts on the Last Podcast Network, and those are Wizard and the Bruiser and Page 7. Wizard and the Bruiser is a research-based kind of nerd history podcast, or essentially we like to say we just take any fandom, anything that has a fandom, and try to just really understand the history of the whole thing and why people love it so much, which ranges from anything from, anime shows or comic books or video games. We literally just did Animorphs, which was fascinating. anything that really tickles that nostalgia little hit, that's something that we all just remember and want to take a trip back to. That also we like to cover as much as possible. And sometimes we cover evil stuff, though. We've done EA and Activision, and that's fun too. Or we've covered something that failed and didn't catch that fandom, like the Virtual Boy. So we're kind of all over the place, but definitely stay within those kind of lines. And then Page 7 is a more current weekly pop culture podcast that I do with my co-host Jackie and MJ. And that's more we're too old for this shit, but we're going to talk about it anyway kind of a thing. And it's a lot of fun. And then outside of that, I have a Twitch stream, twitch.tv/HoldenatorsHo, and I do weekly streams with Jackie. I do Friday just drunken shenanigans stream. I do gaming streams, do all different types of stuff on there. This thing called the Money Pit, which is kind of like a laugh-in type thing, or I do with a bunch of friends and we play Jackbox games and stuff like that. So that's a lot of fun, and those are kind of my big things currently. And then before that, I did one of those raunchy bunch of gross comedians in a room podcasts called Roundtable of Gentlemen. That's kind of where all this stuff came from, with a bunch of my friends, Jackie, Marcus from Last Podcast on the Left, Ben Kissel from Last Podcast on the Left, Kevin Barnett, rest in peace, Ed Larson, who does The Brighter Side on Last Podcast Network. And we started doing that in a basement of a Mexican food restaurant / small comedy stage called The Creek and the Cave. And that's where, like, yeah, we sort of were doing, and even before that, I did one podcast before that even. And so we're really going back to the beginning of all of this stuff, and it was a lot of fun, and we said a bunch of cancelable shit for sure. And I kind of love that it still exists, and you can still find it on like Spotify and stuff. I mean, because you have a document of me and all my friends trying to get big doing comedy in New York City all through our 20s, and yeah. I think that's like a really special thing. Besides that, it's kind of ending or going on an indefinite hiatus, but a member of the band The Cowmen, you can check us out on Spotify. We're working on one final EP together. That was I've since moved out to LA through all the pandemic and getting my wife pregnant and all this kind of stuff. So kind of needed some more space and this, that, and the other, and wanted to be closer to some of the my other coworkers out here. So that's slowing down, but the Cowmen as well. I think that pretty much covers all the bullshit. And then sketch comedy group Murder Fist was like kind of what I moved to New York to do, which is also kind of funny because, one of my big pieces of advice, just to jump into it immediately, is like, just learn how to pivot, because I definitely went to New York City with a sketch comedy group called Murder Fist with the only goal of getting a show on television. And we got close. Like, actually, we got close. But it obviously didn't happen. And it was all this other stuff I was doing on the side, almost as a whatever hobby or whatever, that ended up being like the most lucrative shit. So just like, and it's more fulfilling than I think some of the things I wanted, like a writing job, whereas I hate 9 to 5. So I don't know why I really wanted to be on a writing staff. And I still probably would. I mean, at the end of the day, it'd be cool to do, but I love having my own schedule. That's one of the best things about podcasting and streaming and everything, is just like, I totally get to like set my schedule in my week, and I don't really have anybody to answer to, because anybody who's technically my boss are my friends, and I don't have like an executive to talk to. I mean, there is like Joe Twitch, I guess, but they don't really mess with me. I'm kind of under the radar at this point. I have like just enough people to make a living off of it, but like not enough for them to realize how bad I am for the network. So that's where I want to stay at this point, like just under the clouds in the little like airplane.
That's right. That's right. So I mean, obviously you covered a lot of some of the like smaller questions that we had ready here. So, but like, what really kind of started your role in improv comedy? Like, what really got Murder Fist going?
Actually through failure, big time. So I was kicked out of acting school at the end of my sophomore year of college. I had always really preferred and loved doing comedy. When I was in high school, I was big into improv and stuff, like in my theater class or whatever. And there was actually a one sketch comedy group in Charlotte, North Carolina. They had the coolest situation, especially for a high school kid. It was BYOB. They just put a bunch of couches in this shitty little room, and every Friday and Saturday night they would do 2 shows a night. Every other week they would switch up the show. They would write a new show. Which I think is what inspired me later with Murder Fist to do a show of new material every month, as opposed to recycling the same shit over and over again, which I feel like is a definitely a pitfall for a lot of groups who get into the game. They get 1 or 2 sketches that work really well, and then they just keep doing the same shit. It's like that sad stand-up comedian who's doing the same fucking bits about Ronald Reagan 10 years later. But it was called The Perch. It was so cool. I went every week. They would switch out to new material. I would go and see the new show and just loved it. And we could just chain smoke cigarettes, and there was just a filthy little awesome little punk establishment, and I loved that. And that definitely came into play in college later when I got kicked out of acting school, again learning to pivot. I went into one of the funny things, I think this has changed for in general for people trying to get into comedy and stuff, but I hear this a lot, and I had the same thing where like, oh, you can't just like go be a stand-up. Like, what do you mean? You can't just like do comedy. You have to like, I don't know, it not clicking that it's something you can just go pursue, and like that there's actually like a pathway to that, and not realizing that it's very possible to just start doing comedy. So I was like, oh, I need to like become this like serious actor and like learn Stanislavski and like do the this is the way to do it, like the respectable way, and just struggled obviously really hard with that in college. There wasn't a very good place for like character acting and the kind of stuff I could bring to performance, in comedy. There wasn't a lot of space for that. It was very serious, leading man, Chekhov shit, and I just was not clicking with my professors at all. I've always had issues with authority. I've always had, I feel like they smell it on me. I feel like they don't like me before I can even like not like them. Like,
just like weed you out.
Yeah. Oh, they know from the second, because I worked a bunch of temp jobs and shit in New York City, and like I worked a lot of office stuff, and like the supervisor always liked me, wanted a little color in the office, somebody, he has an interesting kind of passion and he's funny, but like that main boss always hated me every single place I went. And so it'd be the supervisor sticking up for me, being like, he's great, just give him another shot, you know what I mean? But of course I was also pretending to work most of the time at all these jobs and like not actually I was like a terrible employee. But regardless, got kicked out of acting school, and that same night, I had just coincidence had said yes to this guy, John Moreno, who asked me to put on an improv show with him and a couple other people. And I literally like suffered the worst failure up to that point in my life. And then that night I went on stage with these people and fucking crushed and just like destroyed. And it was such a eureka moment. It was just like, oh, this is what I should have been doing. So I finished out school with a BA in theater as opposed to BFA in acting. And all that time I was putting up sketch comedy shows with John and Ed Larson and Henry Zabrowski and Jackie later when she got there, who I do the podcast with now. And this whole crew of people, really funny people that I had just kind of, me and my buddy John had sort of just formed together like Voltron in this kind of on the outskirts of the theater school, and we were doing shows in the parking lot of my apartment complex. We not long after that, we got a regular slot at the only gay bar in Tallahassee, Florida. I went to FSU, Florida State University, and called Brothers, and it was fucking nasty, this place. I loved it. It was so gross. We would go in on Saturdays mornings to do like a dress rehearsal, and it was like everyone's hungover, and the whole place just reeked of like the last night's booze and vomit and fucking, you know what I mean? They'd just be like, it was just so crazy. And like, I loved it so much. And we just started doing regular shows there, and we built a really rabid audience for what we were doing. And it was all outside of the theater school. And it just felt so like, oh, we're already like doing the thing. I mean, I'm glad I went to college because I met everybody that I ended up moving to New York with and like pursuing all this stuff with. But at the same time, it's like almost hard for me to recommend it, because I'm like, if you want to do this, just go do the thing and you'll meet the people. Like, go to New York or go to a big city where there's like a scene and just like start doing it. You don't necessarily, you don't need a degree for this shit, but the cool thing about college is it kind of puts on the training wheels and gives you a space to make a bunch of mistakes and party your brains out and, meet a bunch of hopefully talented people that you can then create something with later. But that's kind of where it started. Then moved to New York with all those guys. We made like a concerted effort. We all moved into the same area in Brooklyn. We very quickly started putting a show together. We first started out at this club in Williamsburg, Brooklyn called Galapagos that has since closed down. I think they moved to a different part of the city, but still we got a regular gig there. Then we started performing regularly at the People's Improv Theater, and it all kind of just went from there. And then we started, and one of the cool things about us in the comedy scene was we were like the only sketch comedy group that could do like any kind of show. And especially like we were like the one sketch comedy group that was in the mix outside of like UCB, the Pit. And we were doing a lot of shows in like indie stand-up rooms and like big stand-up rooms and like meeting, we were like that one sketch group that was like hanging with the stand-up scene as well and making a name for ourselves like kind of in all of the comedy scenes. And I think that's incredibly important to be like adaptable. Like we could get on stage and do a sketch but like command the attention in the room, even in like a rowdy New York stand-up room, and like pull it off in a way that like not a lot of other groups could. And so through that we meet Ben Kissel, and Marcus Parks, who was recording some stand-up shows around the city and was kind of had his own thing going. And then with them, we started trying this dumb thing called podcast that we'd heard about. That we were like, oh, it's like radio, but you can just like do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of how the whole podcasting thing started. Was kind of like everything else, like sketch comedy was like, no one has to say yes to us doing this. We just get to do this and put this out, and we don't need any. There's no authority. There's no executives. There's no, because like we as Murderfist, we had meetings with Comedy Central. We had meetings with, we did big showcase runs out in LA and stuff, and we got really close, like I said, but nothing quite came of it. But all that time we're just putting out this show called Round Table of Gentlemen. Every single week we're meeting on Sundays and we're just doing this show for nobody. While that's going on, Ben, Henry, and Marcus they're all into horror shit and just anything kind of pertaining to like horror and serial killers and aliens and stuff, and they start doing a show based on that, and slowly that forms into the juggernaut that is Last Podcast on the Left. This was all the side shit. If you would ask Henry, like, that was just his like side thing he was doing for funsies. And so it all kind of built up from there. And honestly, Wizard and the Bruiser came from Murder Fist falling apart, Round Table really just it was a victim of a lot of people's success. People just started to not be able to be there on Sunday because they had a writing job in LA, had an acting job in Canada, had something going on where like all of a sudden it was just like me, Marcus, and Jackie. You know what I mean?
Right.
Right.
Which was fun, but yeah, it just wasn't exactly the thing anymore. And so as all that stuff was starting to kind of crumble away, I needed a new direction, and I was just like, dude, I'm just going to do what these fucking guys are doing over here with Last Podcast, but I'll just do it for nerd shit. And that's where the Bruiser came from, as my co-host Jake Young, who we met, again, he was a stand-up in New York City. He was kind of coming off of his podcast that he was doing with Mike Lawrence called Nerd of Mouth. That was falling away because Mike was moving to LA because he's a very successful comedy writer and stand-up. So both of us were kind of at an impasse, and it was Marcus, kind of the godfather, who was like, you know what? You guys should do something together, and kind of pushed us together. And then I was like, well, if we're going to do something, we got to do what you guys are doing, just straight up. We got to do research-based. People want to, my first playwriting teacher that I really loved, Mark Wheatley, he even said, like, when you go to see a play, people want to like, even in a play, people want to learn something. Yeah. So like, if you're going to write a play, whatever you're writing a play about, do your research, do a lot of research. And like, people love to be entertained, and in that entertainment, they want to be taught something, to learn, to walk away having learned something new. And so I kind of held that with me all along, but also just aped off of what my friends were getting so successful with, and just that's how Wizard and the Bruiser started.
Dude, that's fucking insane. So you went with Wizard and the... God damn. That's like... I look... From a lot of what you were saying, like, I look back at, like, my beginnings with a lot of the shit I was trying to do. I wanted to be in a tough guy band, so I was in a tough guy band. But I'm not a tough guy. I'm very... I like staying home and reading and playing video games and just chilling out. So I was like, all right, fuck this band bullshit. I'm done with that. I'm going to start a podcast. And now this is what I'm doing. Kind of, sort of, not like you, obviously, but what was it about like that leap of faith for you? Like, I mean, because taking that jump, right? It's intimidating for anybody, but for you, like, and all your friends, what was it about like that leap of faith jump where you guys were just almost like, fuck it, like we will make our own path one way or another? Like,
yeah, I mean, we kind of felt that vibe from the very beginning because already with Murder Fist, we were sort of this thing on the outskirts of the theater program. Like the teachers at the faculty, like a lot of them didn't really like us or what we were doing because it was like outside of their curriculum and everything. And the fact that we were even making a little money off of it and stuff, I just think it kind of like stuck up their craw a little bit. And doing like raunchy fucking offensive comedy in a gay bar once a week, you know? So that was already kind of there. But, you know, it kind of came out of necessity, though, I would say, because I mean, I'm thinking back on my essentially where I was at, and like I couldn't get a writing job. I couldn't get someone in a suit to say yes to me enough for me to get, you know, onto a staff or on, you know, to get a TV show, you know, and, you know, again, we got really close, but the climate changed. So when we got to New York, we were like, okay, if we just work our asses off, have the best sketch comedy show you can see in New York City, which arguably we accomplished, then the industry will come, they will see what's going on, and we will get that green light, and we will get to at least make like a pilot or something, right? Mm-hmm. One of the problems was there were way too many people in the group. There were like, at one point we had like 14.
Holy shit.
Even pared down to like 8 to 10. It was just way too many mouths to feed. So a lot harder to like DIY to the top. You know what I mean? Like we would have had to have such a specific special situation of like Comedy Central or HBO or somebody being like, we want to give you guys a show. And then just like, that's it. Like the state situation. But the state situation is fucking rare. You know, I mean, those guys really hit, you know, struck gold by getting that opportunity that they got right out of NYU, right? But we're looking at that and being like, oh, that's just the way to do it, right? Another big inspiration, too, was Mr. Show with Bob and David. And like, oh, they just like started this indie comedy scene in LA. And, you know, people took notice and they got HBO came a knocking, right?
Yeah.
But, excuse me, but the thing was about that was right when we got there, they were like, okay, yeah, so now it's all different. And now you need like 1 million views on a 3-minute YouTube video.
Yeah.
We're like, what? We thought all we had to do was work our asses off and be like the fucking hottest comedy group in New York City. Like, you know, not to like toot and horn too much, but I mean, at the very least, like we had people talking about us. People knew the fuck we were. We were one of the only groups that like weren't a UCB group, that everybody at the UCB knew exactly who the fuck we were, you know, and we were just notorious of like being able to get up and like rise above kind of the general scene of improv sketch comedy, and just had like a thing and had a product and had like a vibe that was just different from everybody else. But like, yeah, it was so frustrating that it all of a sudden was like, yeah, but you didn't make this like viral thing that is impossible to purposely make.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right. We're also seeing like other groups kind of fall backwards into like a viral video, and then they all got like a huge shot. And then of course they all like failed at that shot because they didn't put all that time in. Yeah. And not even to say that we would have definitely succeeded, but I mean, we definitely were in a position to at least present our, you know, product on like a larger scale, and then it just never quite happened. But watching like you know, like the Workaholics guys, you know, it was like, how do we that's exactly what we want to do, and they got the shot because they figured out how to put it on YouTube in this specific way, or like Funny or Die or whatever. It was so frustrating, man. And like we tried, I mean, we like made a bunch of, you know, everybody tried, right? I mean, we made a bunch of web series and different things, and, you know, went at it a bunch of different ways. But we just never really hit that in that specific way. And I think that really is what hurt our ability, right, to make something happen. So essentially it's 2016 was my like really dark year. Like Murder Fist was falling apart. Half of my friends were like moving to LA or about to move to LA. Everybody, you know, we all moved into the same area in Brooklyn, and then slowly everybody started spreading out to different parts of the city. So it's kind of like if you don't live in New York or LA is kind of the same thing. Like if you don't like live in the same neighborhood, all of a sudden you might as well live 3 states away. Like you just never see those people. I ended up moving to Astoria, Queens with my, at the time, girlfriend, now wife, Lexi. further like kind of spaced me away from everything and everybody, and just was at this impasse where like Roundtable was going away. I felt like all my friends were killing it, and I was kind of feeling like left behind. And then that's also just the year, out of sheer desperation, I tried a bunch of shit. So I tried Wizard the Bruiser and Twitch, but I also tried a bunch of weird stuff that no one will ever hear about. I tried this weird app by the guys who created Vine, and later that HQ trivia game. They in between those two things, they created this app called Hype, and I was like one of the early, like, I got in through a connection Henry set me up with, and I was like doing these videos for this app no one will ever know about called Hype, which is essentially a way to do like live streaming on the go and like OBS, open broadcast software kind of stuff, but like on your phone on the go in this like streamlined way. You know what I mean? And it was like almost there, but obviously it didn't quite take off. It was sort of like, but I was just shit like that. I was teaching comedy writing. I was literally just doing anything I could do to try to make money or like make a name for myself outside of, because the whole time I'm working this 9-to-5 job in fucking real estate insurance. And I'd been stuck there for like a few years. I was working temp jobs since I got to New York. I had different stints at different offices on a more permanent basis, or a more like full-on hired basis. Worked at Getty Images for a while, but in like accounting, and I've somehow kept finding myself in accounting, even though like I hated accounting. For a while, I was only doing hotel accounting jobs, and I was just like in these basements of hotels, fucking crunching numbers, like just never seeing the light of day. It was so depressing. So out of sheer desperation, I just started anytime I didn't have that going on, I was just doing these fucking different experiments and things. And so I started doing Twitch with Lexi. We did Lexi Loves Game Night, which was every like Sunday night, I think. And she played through all of Final Fantasy VII, which was my like favorite game from my childhood. And that's where the Twitch thing started. I was doing Hype. I was teaching comedy. I was trying to put up shows different places. I was doing Wizard and the Bruiser, and it just after a while and directing a sketch comedy team as well at the Pit. And after a while, I just sort of some stuff started taking off, like the Twitch thing. It was the Bruiser, and we like created a Patreon out of Wizard and the Bruiser, and over on Twitch, things were starting to work out. And I remember it actually. You talk about the leap of faith. So. Right before Christmas break, I think 2016, my boss calls me in for like the annual whatever, that shitty sit down you have to have, where like most people love it because they get like a bonus and a raise or whatever. But like I would, for me, it was always like, here we go again. You know what I mean? Well, we're noticing you don't do anything. You like kind of work here. Like what, you know what I mean? Like it's always have to just kind of do, every now and again, they're like, we're very happy with your work. I'm like, oh, you guys haven't been paying attention. Then you get like the bonus or the raise or whatever. So yeah, I get called in. They're like, we're not giving you a raise. Like we're not happy with your performance. So you can choose to either step it up and get a lot of new responsibilities, and we'll give you a raise, and make this more of a serious like thing in your life, or you have till March to with the company, right? And then the head boss called me in. I think the next day. He was a real fucker, and he called me in and was like really kind of gave it to me. He's the kind of guy, if he was having a bad day, or if some higher up gave him hell, he would fucking take it on. Like you would hear him on the phone with somebody and he making him feel like a turd, like a total fucking plebe piece of shit. And then he would get off the phone and would literally like call the same sad person in that he always takes the shit. You would like just watch it happen right in front, and then hear him just like lambast this person. It was so embarrassing. It was a very small office. So he called me in and kind of gave me the business and was like, when you get back in next week, we're going to sit down, and everyone in the room is going to like go around and give you your new responsibilities and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, okay. And then I left for this long weekend. And all the time this is going on, so while Lexi and I are doing Lex Loves Game Night on Twitch, we're complaining about the couch that we have that we're sitting on while we're playing the games. And we're like, this couch sucks. We need a new couch. And then eventually someone's like, hey, if you just like put a PayPal link in the chat, like we'll we'd be happy to throw down for you to have a new couch. You've literally been entertaining us for an entire year. playing these games like for hours every week, we'll like, I could toss you $5 or whatever. And I think that the new couch was like $600 and we got it in like 2 streams. And we're like, oh,
that's awesome. Yeah.
And all that audience, by the way, and I think this is another big piece of advice is like, dude, just do everything and it'll all add up. Like my audience was all roundtable people, was all fans from that show. And and it was like 20 people, by the way. It wasn't like a lot of people, but like just enough people from that show allowed me to have enough of an audience starting out on Twitch to like build something, and like get the ball rolling on a community over there. And so, years and years of doing a show for no one for free, like still meant, added up to something, So even if you don't see it right away, if you're consistent and you do it every single week and you do it at the exact same, and you're just dedicated and consistent, it should pay off eventually,
Right.
I think it's such an important thing to learn that like if you're not seeing it right then and there, like don't worry about, like one of the things I hate is like, and forgive me if you guys did this at all, but when people like launch their new podcast and then just like immediately launch a Patreon.
No, we did not do that.
It's like, it always makes me, I'm like, dude, cart before the horse, like put the time in, give the people, you have to give your blood sacrifice to people. You have to like,
absolutely.
You have to give your time and energy and show for free for at least a year.
Yep.
Because I think it was after 1 year of Wiz the Bruiser, we did the Patreon, right?
Yeah.
But like you have to give it up at least a year, probably longer if you're just starting out. Wiz the Bruiser, we already again had an audience because Jake put his time in with Nerd of Mouth and I put my time in with Roundtable Gentlemen, right? And so those two things combined added up to, having albeit small, but like listenership, right? From the get-go with that. So again, it wasn't just like we did that show for free for a year. We did that show for free for a year on top of 60 or whatever year, how many years it was of doing a show for free before we did that Patreon, you know?
Right.
But either way, we get the couch, going back to the Twitch stream, we get the couch. And I remember I was like, I guess I had gone in after that long week and was like, I'm done in March, right? Yeah. So I had like a certain amount of time. But essentially what I told myself was like, if you can raise up enough money by Twitch streaming from this point, essentially like right after I got back from Christmas break to March, if you can raise up the money for a gaming PC and a like full stream setup, like the whatever, all the bells and whistles, then you will just pursue, you will take the leap of faith. You will just do Twitch and, directing this house team and doing podcasts and like, that's, you know what I mean? And that's it. You will only do things pertaining to entertainment, comedy, blah, 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 on your own schedule, on your own time. And I got the money in like a month and a half. And that's like sick. It was like not that many streams. And it was some unbelievable people who stepped out and like random strangers. I got all teary-eyed talking about this on my Twitch episode in Wizard and the Bruiser, but literal strangers being like, I believe in you. And like, here's one guy I remember it was like $500 or something, which is like a third of what I needed, right? It was like $1,600 for like a full gaming PC set with mics and all the bullshit, you know what I mean? And the camera and everything. And it was just like, I don't remember who. What kills me is I don't think I have that stream like archived.
Right.
I don't remember the username that did that. And like, I'll always remember that gesture. Was like mind blowing to me. It's a stranger from some random part of the country who I've never met in my entire life, who had been listening to my podcasts and all this mountain of work that content that I'd been creating up to this point, that was like, dude, you got this, and just fucking made it happen for me. And like, it was incredible. And that is kind of, so that's how I got to my leap of faith. And just, I've never had to look back. I mean, shit, I still think about like, well, someday you actually might have to walk back into an office. I would at least just hope that it would be like an office, a media office that does, and I'm there to do like live streaming and stuff, hopefully at this point, and podcasts. But regardless, I love having the situation I have. I'm going to fight really hard to keep it. I love that like my only bosses are very good friends of mine that, don't feel like bosses. I create my own schedule. I mean, even now I have a 7-month-old daughter, and because I work from home and have the schedule I have, I get to spend very solid quality time with her every single day for hours, you know? And I think a lot of dads who work 9 to 5s and have to travel for work, they don't get that opportunity, you know? And I think that's sad, you know? Yeah. So it's been an amazing thing so far, but I also understand how like delicate and like amazing it is. And so it's also like a constant fight to like keep it. Never let it go. I really don't want to go back to a 9 to 5. I fucking hate 9 to 5 so much.
Absolutely.
We're on our way, hopefully running the fuck out of it. Because after, I know Brody and I were both talking, because I'll call him when I'm at work and shit. And I know it's your show, Brody. I'm not taking over, I promise.
No, absolutely.
But I have to get this out of the way. But I was driving, because that's what I do. I'm basically Philip J. Fry for a mechanic company, which is fine right now. But so I was listening to the Twitch episode, and I was like, holy fucking shit. Like, hearing your story and hearing, like, how you got during that episode, me and Brody were talking, I'm like, did you hear that episode? He's like, yeah, dude. I'm like, we need to just fucking start our own shit. And, like, that's how, like,
awesome. That's
we've been podcasting, but, like, then the idea for our own, like, hub, essentially, came to be, and I was like,
hell yeah.
Like, fuck everyone else. We're doing our own shit. We're getting our friends together. That episode is the one that really like stuck out.
Amazing. And I think it's so important, for people to hear. It goes all the way back to like why I went into like serious acting school instead of just fucking going to New York and doing stand-up. Like, do stop worrying about the things that involve some higher up saying yes, giving you a green light to just be able to do it, and start focusing on the things that you can literally start doing tomorrow, which is why podcasting is so amazing and streaming. The only problem with that, the other side of that is there's a lot, fewer people in the I got the green light camp and are getting to do their thing in like maybe television or whatever. But everybody can do a podcast, right?
Yeah.
So the example I always bring up is my buddy John, who I was talking about earlier, was like, I'm thinking about starting a podcast for Star Trek. And I was just like, cool. I was just like, how many Star Trek podcasts do you think there are? I was like, I don't know. I forgot what number he gave it. It was absurdly low. And then I Googled it really quick. I was like, I just pulled up a listicle that is literally the top 30 Star Trek podcasts. So that's just the top fucking 30. I'm sure there's like 1,000 Star Trek podcasts. So the other thing is, rising above everything. But I think a lot of people don't know how to be consistent and don't know how to like give that blood sacrifice and do a lot of work for free for a really long time before you even get to like the payoff. You know,
people want instant gratification.
Yeah.
For something like this, it better than we do. I know jack shit compared to you. Like, it just doesn't happen right away.
Not at all. Anything. Yeah. And it's like not only that, but what I think the biggest piece of advice, like just doing a podcast also probably won't cut it. But if you're doing all the stuff you're doing, including like, you were saying you were in a band at one point, but it's like, if you have a band and a podcast and you're live streaming and you've got all these different approaches and a fucking, I know I have an ex who's like getting really big on TikTok. You know what I mean? She's like also a comedy actress, struggling for the longest time, trying to get through auditions and get, cast and stuff, and really struggling with that. And it's really cool to see that she just started fucking saying, fuck it, I'm just going to consistently put comedy content out on TikTok, and it seems to be working. I don't know what the next step is, but it's like what essentially happens is this person on TikTok, maybe they're not getting paid that way, but if they then start a podcast that pertains to whatever they're successful off of on TikTok, then that's going to feed into that, and then that's going to feed the net. You know what I mean? Because Twitch wouldn't exist for me without Roundtable of Gentlemen, and like Roundtable of Gentlemen was the fucking side thing, hobby thing that I was just like, fuck it, it's fun. I hang out bullshit with my friends while I'm trying to do my real thing, which is this sketch comedy group that I'm trying to get a TV show. And again, even last podcast on the left, which is way more successful than anything I'm doing, that my friends do, that for like, even Marcus, he was trying to start, and he was successful, start like a podcast network like it would be a radio network, and now we have Last Podcast Network. But he was thinking bigger picture. He also wasn't like, "Yep, Last Podcast on the Left. That's going to be the gold mine. That's going to be." No, it just became the runaway hit. They were just trying everything, and so I think that is kind of the important thing. Is like, don't take the blinders off. Learn how to pivot. And just do everything and don't like diminish anything. Like Roundtable in hindsight was just as important and obviously more important, probably the most important thing I did during those years. And it was literally the bottom of my like priority list. Right. You know what I mean? In terms of, or the bottom of my prediction of what will actually help me list. You know what I mean?
That's awesome.
Dude, that's fucking gnarly.
I mean, it's cool to see that because we've been, like I said, I've been doing this for 3 years now, and I think Nick's been doing it for about 2 years, and it is, you do hit those moments, like it definitely does kind of creep in where you're like, I've been doing this and not getting paid for it, but putting a lot of time into it for a long time, and to just, you know, hearing that success story of it, right? Because it is that thing of, we created this network with the idea of being able to create the content we love and have a job that is rewarding and that we actually enjoy. I mean, I have my normal 9-to-5 type job as well, and it sucks the fucking life out of you, right?
Let that fuel you too, though. Don't let it like keep you from and that's what kind of happened to me in 2016 was like, I always say to people, don't get a day job you like. That's the worst thing if you're trying to have like, if get one you like, if like you're cool with, you know, if that's what you want to just like have a day job that you enjoy and like do the thing, and you don't have like kind of any higher aspirations or any other aspirations of like, I have a passion that is this, that has nothing to do with my day job, right?
Right.
So as soon as you have a day job, you're like comfortable. The worst is like copywriter for a lot of writers, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You're kind of able to be a little creative, but it's still corporate, dead-eyed, shitty work.
Yeah. Yep.
But it's just enough to kind of keep you there. Or even like a BuzzFeed job, or you know what I mean? It's like just enough, like the office is just cool enough. There's like just enough there to make you feel like, to just keep you not desperate to break out of it. Whereas like real estate insurance, every hour I was there, all I thought about was getting the fuck out of real estate insurance. And I hated it so much that like, I almost think it's better if you have aspirations for something outside of it, career-wise, to have like the fucking worst job ever, because then it'll propel you, and that's definitely what it did for me, as opposed to kind of being just comfortable enough to be like, I just kind of want to go home and hang out and not do a bunch of. But the other thing too is like, do it for free and do it consistently. But if it sucks, or if like you know it's not quality, or you're not having fun anymore, don't just like drag yourself through it either. Like do shit that's fun, that you like, that's like fulfilling to you at the very least. So it's not just all, I do this for free and it's such a grind.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
I feel like that's a common trapping though. Sorry, Brody, but
no,
like,
you're good.
With
you're
a
good.
lot of up and coming creators, like I said, with the instant gratification, where it's like, this is what's big, therefore I will do this. Oh shit, this is not catching on. What else is big? This is big, therefore I do this, and people will have to love me. And it's like, dude, no, just have fucking fun, bro.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, the amount of times, the fucking meetings I had with like that slew of terrible, like, we're a comedy video website kind of people. And them kind of doing a lot of talk about like making things that are viral. And it's just like, that's not how it works. You can't just like sit in a lab and create viral shit.
No,
you know what I mean? Like that's, it sort of just happens, and you have to ride that wave. And like, you know, if it happens, but you can't force that. And I think a lot of people spend a lot of time trying to outthink the audience, and I think that's a huge mistake. Just like do what you like and what in what is you're into, you know. Because for me, it was like Last Podcast Boys, they were into a lot of researching a lot of shit that I would like hate to have to research week in, week out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas like
it's depressing
I
as
want to
hell.
learn about I want to learn about you know, fucking Hunter and you know, the making of, you know, the Star Wars movies or whatever the fuck it is, you know, or like Spawn, my favorite comic book when I was a kid. I want to learn all about how that came to, you know what I mean? And it's like, that's fascinating to me. Also, I love The Wizard Bruiser because I spend hours every week usually learning about how someone became incredibly successful, and
it usually involves a cave.
So much out of that. Usually involves a cave behind their house.
In Japan.
So
fucking wild.
The real thing too, though, is the big one I learned for a lot of things is get a job at like a corporation where they're maybe like a big, if you want to be a game designer, get a job at like a big game dev company, right? Where you're kind of a peon, and then just be able to like, again, fly right under the radar and be like, I'm going to go off to the side and make this little thing, this Resident Evil thing. It's like, don't worry about it, Capcom. I don't need a big budget. I'm just going to kind of, they're like, oh yeah, just go. As long as you give your time and energy to our big AAA project over here, we'll let you like after hours work on this dumb little Resident Evil thing.
Yeah.
Like I read that was like so many stories. Like get a job at a place that has the funds and like does the thing you do, and then just like after hours make your thing. And
right.
It's insane, dude.
Yeah, that's a lot of them for sure.
So fucking crazy.
So to kind of focus in on Wizard and the Bruiser a little bit, I mean, so I know how you and Jake met, but how did the idea for this come up? Because so far you've talked a lot about, comedy and that stand-up side of it, and then, getting in with the last podcast guys. But how exactly did you come about like doing, this podcast that focuses mainly on like nerdy shit, right? Like the shit that we love.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I met Jake doing stand-up at, and we would run into each other a lot at the Creek in the Cave, and like, I was just getting back into video games, so I was like carrying around my 3DS, and we would just start talking about like video games and stuff. And he was like, I was desperate for anyone I could talk about video games with, actually, at that time. It was kind of funny. Like, I started doing this thing called PlayStation Network shoutouts on Roundtable of Gentlemen, which became this like staple where I'd read messages people sent me on PlayStation Network. Literally started doing that because I didn't have any friends on PSN, and I just wanted people to like play video games with, and like I wanted to, like, I was in this weird spot where, like, not a ton of my friends were, like, big gamers or whatever. I was just kind of, I dropped it for a while because I was like, no, I'm, like, cool now. I listen to jazz and, like,
right.
I do chain smoke and do stand-up comedy and, or sketch comedy or whatever. And, and then I was like, oh, wait, no, like, video games, like, I love them and I want to play them all the time. And so, I started just kind of getting back into that. And therefore, whenever I saw Jake, let's talk. I'm playing this or whatever. And what are you up to? And we just got along well. And again, we were at that crossroads. Roundtable was falling away. I was very vocal about how fucking desperate I was for like something new, something else to get out of my day job and whatever. And Jake, Nerd of Mouth was just ending. And then again, it was Marcus just pushing the two of us together, being like, you guys should do something. If you listen back, those early episodes, Marcus produced it.
Yeah. Yep.
And he was there as kind of a third voice, but he was sort of in the background because back then he was very hands-on on every single show in the network. And then that not too long afterwards, the Bruiser started up and running. He finally realized like, oh, actually Last Podcast Left is like a fucking full-time, especially when they started touring and stuff and everything, Last Stream on the Left. And like, it was like, no, this is your job, like for the most part, and helping, keep the network up and running. But like, you can't be the producer on you have to start getting other producers. But in the beginning, he was producing it, and we didn't even. So if you go back to the first episode, it was we thought we would take more like, I guess, like now we take a product or like a show, a comic book character, or something like that, and tell the history of it. It's a lot more straight up. Our first episode was about the relationship between Sonic and Mario, and it was the whole kind of, Sega does what Nintendo don't, like ad campaign, and the kind of that era of like weird video game advertising and the battle between Nintendo and Sega. It was a little bit more of like ambiguity in terms of like what we even did in our episodes back then. But I just remember we did an episode, and usually Marcus makes people record like several episodes of a podcast before he releases anything, and those episodes are just like saved and put off to the side and never actually put out. It's just a lot of test runs, and he usually like he's pretty brutal. He'll be pretty brutal about it. Like even No Dogs, they recorded like several versions of that first episode they put out before they actually put it out. And one of the coolest things was we finished that episode, and he looked up, he was like, I think this is ready to go. We're like, what? You don't need us to do like 8 more of these?
Right.
You know? And he's like, no, that was great. Like, it just felt right immediately between the two of us and what we were doing. But then we kind of honed in a little bit more on like what we actually do with the show. More than, you know, a little bit more specifically, but besides that, it was just kind of there from the beginning in terms of like what our rapport was and stuff, which is pretty magical because Jake was guested on some roundtable episodes, but if you've ever listened to that show, that's just like a fucking shit show of voices.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a ton of people. So we didn't even know what kind of chemistry we had, so it was kind of miraculous that he said that to us and that, you know, it started there. We were immediately, started releasing episodes, and I was doing at that point too. I was still in my day job, so I'm doing my research at my day job. Mm-hmm. Sneaking it in during work hours, and stuff, which is again something.
I've never
something
done
you
that.
gotta, something you gotta do a little bit, which is great though. You're getting technically getting paid to do
right.
what you really care about.
So
holy shit.
When I reached out to you, I mean, I fanboyed hard as shit and went, I was like, oh, into my gush, because you guys have this structure where you start out with your gush of this topic, and then you kind of go into it and into the weeds and really break it down from the beginning. How did you guys settle on that formula? Because when I reached out to you, I even said, I was like, you guys have really just mastered this genre of podcasting where, and from the beginning, it's not like, you've honed in a little bit more where it is one specific character or whatever it may be. But I mean, from the very beginning, you guys had a excellent structure for what makes it entertaining while, keeping the comedy levels high and also being informative and like just this perfect formula. How did you guys settle on that?
I think, again, it's like the Karate Kid thing, right? Where you put in all this work that you don't know is going to amount to something later, right? Like you don't know that like wax on, wax off is like going to be applied to, So I sat at my day job for fucking hours and hours listening to podcasts and then eventually watching Twitch streams. And that was a big, giant distraction from the pain of being in an office for that many hours every single day around people you hate. But actually that was me putting in work for the future, right? Like, and one thing that drives me nuts is when people, especially when pandemic hit and everybody wanted to have a live stream and stuff, and literally like people fucking laughed at me at first when I was doing Twitch and like, what the fuck is this? And definitely did not make me feel like I was on the right path or whatever. Right. And then pandemic hits and literally all these fucking people are coming out of the woodwork, hitting me up. How do I get a live stream going? Blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? All those same people too that were like, I'm stand-up. You can never take away I love like listening to Rogan and stuff, and they were like talking like, that's the beauty thing about stand-up. No one can tell you to stop. No one can tell you not. It's like, yeah, dude, but then a fucking pandemic can rip through the nation, and then you literally cannot do it. So like, you have to be able to pivot to different stuff. And a lot of people were hitting me up about Twitch, and I'm just like, bro, fucking go on Twitch and just watch the shit and like get just for hours. That's what I did. I just was so bored of my job that I just had a Twitch stream up and I was just watching like Dr. Disrespect or whoever the fuck play video games and just saw how they were interacting with their audience and like doing little things that you don't necessarily think of up in the beginning, like saying a chat person's message out loud before responding to it, because like, especially if someone's going to watch it in replay in the archive, like if you're just if you're just having a one-sided conversation, people don't know what you're talking about a lot of times, right? So like just little tricks like that, I was just subconsciously taking in and consciously taking in before I did it. And same with podcasts. I mean, I was just like, I listened to hours and hours of podcasts at my job, and I still do. When I'm playing video games, like I almost said when I play video games. I'm always like, as much as possible, it's a very story heavy video game. I have a second monitor with a podcast up, with like a video podcast up. So even now I'm still doing it. So I think it's like a combination of that, and then all the hours we put in on Roundtable, on Nerd of Mouth, on stuff on podcasting and stuff before that. The rapport between us specifically working out, that was kind of just kismet. Like that was just kind of like, thank God, because you're desperate and I'm desperate and we need to do something here. So thank God we have the rapport. And then the other thing, and again, it kind of sort of, I think it's just, but it is also the act of doing to figure it out. We kind of started to nail down our basic approach even separately without even talking about it for a little bit until we kind of were like, oh, this is kind of what I do and this is what you do. Like I get the formal structure stuff. I'm writing down dates. I have pages of notes where I'm like the timeline and very specific. Jake is a little bit more like freeform jazz with his research. He's got like a bunch of tabs open. He's a lot better at like I have to take precise notes and like work off of kind of a script. Like Marcus writes a script, right? Like he takes notes, then from those notes he creates a script, and then like it's like he's on a script, and then Ben and Henry are doing their own research off the side, but they're coming in just kind of to like throwing shit in, right? And sort of like reacting to his script as if kind of like that it's almost like Murderville more recently, but that improv game. Murderville's a show on Netflix where they do this. Where one person has a theater script, like a script from a scene of a play, and then the other person just has to like try to riff on that and improvise on that and figure it out, and shenanigans ensue. It's kind of like the way I do a little bit. It's less of a script, even though I am reading a decent amount of it verbatim right off the page, while kind of also throwing in my extra 2 cents and stuff. Whereas Jake sort of has it all in his head, has all the references open, but I'm the one supplying like, especially like quotes. Like I'm supplying like specific quotes people have said about the thing. Jake is like able to bring all this extra information that like I would not have gotten off in my notes, that were just all these little rabbit holes that he goes down. So it just balances itself really well. But a lot of times you have a situation where like one person does all the kind of research and stuff and brings that in, and then the other person's like the color fully, like the color commentary, and I think that works really well too, as long as they're funny enough and charming enough to like pull that off and not just come off as the person who didn't do any work. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
He didn't want to say it, but Nick said it.
I said it. Dude,
but that's true. That's what Ben does. Like Henry kind of does Henry does research, but more like Jake, and Marcus does like the, he brings the fucking book in, and throws it at him, right? But if they all did that kind of research, then it would not be good.
It'd be boring.
It would just be like a straightforward thing, and it's like,
Well, and somebody even came on our page. It was a comment on our Patreon, because I was talking a lot about Elden Ring, and Jake hasn't played it at all. And someone complained about that, and was like, I wish you had someone come on who also played Elden Ring to be able to talk about it better. Sorry, Jake. But in my head, I'm like, I need Jake to not have played it. I need the person there that I can explain it to.
Yes.
He can ask the questions, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
exactly.
He's going to back me up and make sure that I'm, if I'm not explaining it to him well, then the audience isn't getting it well. So it would probably be cool to have a third person who played it, but I still want Jake there who hasn't played it, because I need that element to pull off the dynamic and get the information across.
Yeah, no, that's.
Well, you brought up Elden Ring. So what are you maining in Elden Ring?
I did. So I beat it last week. So I want to start up like a magic run. New Game Plus is kind of a joke. I'm just fucking in a 3-hour Twitch stream. I got through the castle. I got through Margit and Godric and the Academy, and made it all the way to Radon, and probably would have wiped Radon out if I had enough time, but I had to be done.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. I just skipped all the like side shit though. I just went straight through them. Yeah, I just went straight through the main bosses, and then I didn't even go to Weeping Peninsula, and just in a 3-hour stream, I fucking was at the festival.
It gets even easier after that, too. That first New Game Plus is supposed to be like a 50% increase in difficulty.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's like 5 or 7 or something. Like.
So I kind of want to start a new game and do a full-on like mage or like magic or faith-based kind of, and play with magic more. But I always do this with these games, and Marcus is the same. Like we always play straight melee build like the first time around. So I did quality build. Started as Vagabond, even though starting class doesn't really matter that much at the end of the day. It's just kind of like your basis. But yeah, I did pretty even into strength and dex. And it was nice because I was wielding for a lot of the game. I had just a normal basic longsword that I upgraded all the way to, took all the way to plus 25, and then added a bleed sword art. And that's how I beat Radahn pre-nerf the first time, was with bleed on my longsword, just going in there, just fucking going crazy. And then I did blood rot arrows for the second phase when he was just like really volatile to get near. And managed to do it pretty handily that way. And I was proud to say I did a pre-nerf because, of course, they nerfed him to shit.
Us too.
Apparently, they walked that back. Which is cool.
Yeah, they jumped
dude. Nice. Yeah, I want to know your builds in a second. I did, and then so I did, but I was also wielding Godric's axe, which was like anytime I was taking down something that was just maybe wasn't as susceptible to bleed, but I could break their poise, like maybe a giant dragon or something like Placidus or whatever the fuck he does suck. I hated that boss. A beautiful looking boss, but he frustrated the shit out of me. I used Godric's axe for that fight because I could break his poise with that. I could kind of get in there and get those hits in. But I eventually, I just actually went. I was like, best weapons, Elden Ring. Like once I got to Millennia in the late game, I was just like, give me the good shit. And I was having a great time with bleed. So yeah, I had already had the Rivers of Blood katana in my inventory. I maxed that thing out. I maxed that thing out, and just that L2 just fucking evaporated. Like so many, including Millennia. I mean, it took me a handful of runs, but and again, I also want to do a replay with no ashes summons, no summons of any kind. Totally. Once I had Mimic Tier maxed out with the fucking Rivers of Blood katana, and we're both L2ing doing that sword art on Millennia. I mean, it was just game over. Like but I didn't learn her, and I didn't learn a lot of the bigger bosses in the way that I would normally because of that Mimic Tier. It just totally took all the like hours of really learning those animations and timings, and that's kind of how I'm more used to play. I mean, I've beaten every one of them. I platinumed Sekiro. I got all the endings. I beat Bloodborne and Dark Souls 1 through 3, and more recently that Demon Souls remake. Finally, when I got a PS5, so I could finally go back and complete the circle. So I mean, I fucking have those games in my blood. I just love them so much. But it was almost like a bummer. Like I would give no one. I can't believe anyone gives people shit for using the like ashes or summons or whatever. Like, oh, it's not real. But I will say, I actually want to do a full replay and like actually learn the bosses and not just run in and just go and just fucking get hit like crazy, and it didn't matter because my vigor was high, my life bar was big enough, and and we're just both just fucking going me and other me just going I mean, literally having moments where like I'm healing and other me just kills the fucking boss while I'm trying to just. I was like, all right, well, this is ridiculous.
It's so awesome though, man.
What about you guys?
So
for the build,
this is my first Souls game. I tried, I think it was Dark Souls 3 very briefly, and I got very angry very quick, very quickly, and so
a lot of people bounced off that one.
So I've been trying to introduce myself into this whole like the Soulsborne games, right? And this one has absolutely captured me. I was the same way. I ran a Claymore like all the way up till Millennia, and
Claymore in the Weeping Peninsula Castle. I remember. I sought that out specifically because I was gonna potentially use that as well.
I just happened to stumble across it, and I'm like, hey, this thing has good range, and I can swing it somewhat fast. So I ran a sword or that Claymore, and then I ran a shield. Never used the shield, so I don't really know why I had it, but I had it. And then I was just kind of playing through it, trying to figure out, what the hell was going on. I finally got up to Fire Giant area and got my Rivers of Blood, and all of a sudden I ditched the shield and I went and sought out another katana as well. So I'm running Rivers of Blood and Meteor something or another.
Meteor. So I know Moonveil's the other big one that I want to also introduced into my magic base build like in the next run, just because it's you need intelligence points for that. Yeah,
I got that one as well too. I haven't used it yet, but I leveled both my katanas up. Still working on Melania right now. That is still my sticking point, where it's like all it takes is one good flurry and you're back to full health and you're like, damn it. Also, I'm dead, but she's also healed again. So fantastic, great.
Dude.
Yeah, it's so brutal. I mean, you literally just have to. I watched like a speedrunner kind of give a lot of tips on Melania on a stream recently. Like, you just have to run away from the first 2 swipes and then dodge into her for the next one. And like, it's like a whole. That's what I love about those games. Like, they'll always figure out like what your impulse is and make you do the thing counter to.
Yeah.
I remember I was so stuck on this dragon in the DLC of Dark Souls 3 because you're just trained with giant bosses to get behind them and attack them. And for this one dragon, it was like, no, we want you to stand right in front of this dragon's path and hit the dragon right in the head, which is like so counter to what you're used to. Because actually, when the dragon breathes fire down, it goes like back as opposed to like out, like you would think it would, and so you're safer right in front of the dragon. It was so and it took me hours I was screaming at this fucking fight, and then the second I was like, what if I try this? It just immediately completely worked out.
Half the time it's just trying to fight your lizard brain, right? Like, you get it in your head where you're like, this is what I'm gonna do, and this is how it's worked in the past, and
finding patience, getting and not being greedy, and every time you want to get that one extra hit, it's just it'll always punish you. And I love that about that game. It really forces you to like step outside of the way you usually would play a video game. What about you?
Yeah, so right now I focused on dex and strength and vigor. So I'm trying to go for like
quality
super
build.
Quality.
Yeah.
I was going Ooga Booga Brain with a great sword from that like Guts' great sword, right?
Yeah,
so I was just total smooth, and I was like, I go in, I attack, I kill.
Total smooth.
I'm just, dude. I wasn't thinking because I pplayed all the other Souls games, Soulsborne games.
A lot of bosses that'll totally. It's just the one, and that's what I like about the quality thing. It's like, you just having that other option, that speedy, quick option. When you need, like, it just being able to switch between the two always.
Which
helps.
brings in the katanas that I finally I went to seek out with Brody's help, and I was like, dude, this isn't working. I can't do shit anymore. I am now stuck on Melania, and I had a roid rage moment the other day where I just had like my hands felt like they were digging into themselves. It was like try like 45, and I was like, I just have to go outside. Yeah, and I had to walk away. But I finally got Moonveil and that meteor blade.
I know. I've
just been like eviscerating everything, and it's been beautiful. But I want to now, like you were saying, go back again and relearn these boss fights.
Yeah.
Because with Mimic Tier, my Mimic Tier is so leveled up. Those blades are so strong, and I'm just like, I'm melting everything, and it's still fun because when it dies, I'm like, yeah, motherfucker, yeah. And then I walk away from my computer, and I dance really quick, and I come back, I'm like, that didn't feel like a Souls game, though.
That was like I just evaporated because I have 2 of me, and they're so distracted. But yeah, I will also say before I actually took down Melania, I got really nerdy with this one. I went on the wiki, the Elden Ring, like all the Souls. The main wiki is like so useful and so organized, well put together. They have a whole list by area of the game of every single boss, like every single thing that you might fight that has a giant life bar appearing at the bottom. Like they have a full comprehensive list of every single one in the game. All like there's some between like 80 or 100 of them. I went through and tracked down everyone that I missed in every single like section of the game and beat them all. And then went back to, so I was like also like pretty over leveled, I think, when I went back to Melania. And it was still challenging, by the way, to beat with just, way less than, I didn't do it 40 attempts, but like, it was more like 10, but still like it's, that was also kind of what changed things, but very fun because I feel like I literally saw almost every single thing you can see in the game. Like, location wise and stuff, is if pretty much everything that's interesting in the game ends with some type of boss fight. So yeah, I got to really check out every nook and cranny of that whole world by doing that, which is fun. So now I want to go back, try some other builds, and do some of the side quest stuff, like NPC quests that I missed. That's the other thing. So I still, after well over 100 hours, I haven't seen everything, which is fucking crazy. So
it's insane.
Same here. And I didn't see. I wanted that Rivers of Blood sword so bad. I'm like, Brody, where do I go? Like, I need to get this sword.
Giants. There's NPs like
I biffed it, dude. I beat the boss prior to getting it, and it's one of those.
If you beat the giant. If you beat the giant, flame giant, then it goes
forever.
Away.
Gone forever, man.
Well, there's always doing good plays. That sucks. Yeah, that's a fun ass. That's a fun sword, but you know what? It kind of it makes the game ridiculous.
Oh,
so
it does. It's insane. It's absolutely crazy. I mean, after I got that, I didn't level up very many more times, and then I went back to some areas I was kind of having trouble with, and just powered through it. It completely changes it for sure. So I don't want to keep you too much longer. I know you're a busy guy, and I kind of gave you a time frame on this, but I do have a couple gaming questions while we're here, because again, we're both gaming shows. So, you talked about Final Fantasy VII earlier. You've talked about the Bloodborne, or not Bloodborne specifically, but Soulsborne games in general. What ranks as your favorite game of all time?
Well, I always say my favorite game from my childhood was Final Fantasy VII. My favorite game in modern times, Elden Ring may be changing this, but I always said that first Dark Souls. I think your first Souls game in general. I think that Bloodborne and maybe even Sekiro is technically is a better game, but in terms of personal favorite, the experience I had playing through that first Dark Souls game was just completely changed the way I approached gaming, at a point when I would never have thought that would happen at an age in my life. I had gotten back into video games. I bought a Xbox 360 at the very end of its cycle from a buddy who got it for free, so I paid $25 for it or something like that.
Yeah.
And, which was awesome. Is then I went and got the Mass Effect trilogy for $20 at the GameStop. Sweet. You know what I mean? And so I'm just getting just a ridiculous amount of hours of amazing video game for very little money, because I think the new all the new consoles were coming out. And with Dark Souls, my friends, I was living with my buddy Kep, and my other friend Kellen was hanging out a lot. And as a joke, they went out and picked up Dark Souls as we're going to pass the controller around and get murdered a lot and laugh about it and just make fun of each other and stuff. And it was just this kind of never actually thinking we'd actually beat it, much less become obsessed, And
right.
I had started a run on that and got all the way to Ornstein and Smo, but one of the things with those games, you do have to pay attention to what you're putting points into. And, I was kind of doing a melee mage mix and not really understanding how that would work. And then also Elden Ring is the cushy life. You can fast travel. In Dark Souls, you cannot fast travel until you beat Ornstein and Smo.
Right.
And even then, you can only fast travel to certain bonfires. And so by the time you get to Ornstein and Smo, for me, I was so underleveled for the area, and I had fucked up so much in terms of just everything. In terms of the weapons and everything. In order for me to go all the way back to where I could maybe grind out some levels and stuff, would have been this insane undertaking, and would just be too much. And I just put the game down. I was just I kind of fucked up. I hit a dead end here. And then when I got that Xbox, I went out and got Dark Souls, and was a lot more. I kind of based my build off of my friend Kevin. Kellen had since beaten the game, and I based it off of their advice, which they got the Zweihander. They went full Ooga Booga as well, and totally figured out. I remember I was smoking cigarettes at the time. I've since quit, but I remember I was alone in the apartment. It was a Saturday. Lexi was gone. I think she might have even been out of town, and I was just banging my head against Ornstein and Smo. It was such a huge deal for me to beat it, because I failed that first time around. And I was just having so much struggle trying to beat it. I remember going downstairs and going outside and just pacing around in front of my apartment building, smoking cigarettes. And then I went back up and sat down, and after another hour or something, I beat it. And that feeling I got from beating that boss was nothing like any other video game experience I'd ever had. I felt incredible. And just I was obsessed. I would play the shit out of it every night, and then in bed I'd be looking up the next area that I was about to have to endure and the next boss I was going to fight and tips and everything. And, I was thinking about it when I wasn't playing it. And I just hadn't had anything like that since maybe FF7, back in the day as a kid, or Metal Gear Solid, or whatever. And it just really brought back this like childlike excitement and wonder. So yeah, that's why I always say that first Dark Souls game, even though I would say there are better games in the series, I think it's always your first one that really clicks with you and changes your whole perception approach to video games that like will always be, have that special place.
I'm so excited to go back and play all of them now, because I've got that bug now. Man. Yeah, Bloodborne's first on my list.
Bloodborne's so cool. I mean, I love them all, honestly. I even love Dark Souls 2, but I think Bloodborne is so just the Lovecraftian shit and I love the rabbit hole that you go down with those games, like in the sense like you start out in like a town or a village or a big kingdom, and then like you end up in the fucking bowels of hell. I love
absolutely. It. Oh man, they do a great job. They craft these beautiful worlds. I mean, the Bloodborne stuff. I'm especially interested in that, just from that Lovecraftian aspect of it. It's a very interesting world, despite the creator, obviously, but that kind of world that they based it off of is so cool. And then I definitely want to try out like Demon Souls. I'm basically just gonna work my way back through all of them, and I can't wait. I have a long journey ahead of me, and I'm so excited.
It's okay. You can play the first one on Switch.
I know.
Marcus was playing it on the airplane.
It's
he was telling me about it, and I was like, I should probably do that. That's awesome. Yeah. So it's a good time. I'm so hyped about how much people love Elden Ring and how many new people it's brought, because it just literally means that it's going to inspire so many games to follow its lead, and From Software is going nowhere, and I just am so happy about that. Yeah.
I'm so stoked, dude. I remember Dark Souls 1. I was living, not the first Dark Souls, but like finally getting my hands on it in my own apartment. And back then, when I was a smoker as well, I was dirtball life, so I was smoking while I was gaming.
Right.
Dude, I remember like one session, I was like smoking, and I was like, dude, I can't fucking do it. I looked down, like, one more cigarette, and I'm like, dude, in an hour I did a pack, and I was like,
holy shit!
I am going outside. I'm done. Like, I don't have like aggression issues, but like when I'm playing these games, it's like something in my brain. I'm just like, I need to beat it.
Yeah,
and that's what like Elden Ring is so beautiful, because it's like, look at all of this. It's almost like akin to like that Skyrim moment that we all had when Skyrim first came out. Mm-hmm. You see that over there? Go there.
Yeah.
You get stuck there, leave there, go something. That's like, it's so beautiful. And hearing everyone's stories, like yours and Brody's, and
so exciting. Yeah, especially now, once you get into it too, when every new one comes out, there's so much fun to be had. Just so many text chains. Like, I have this beloved text chain I have between Marcus and Kevin Barnett of the three of us playing Dark Souls 3, and like it just the whole chain is just us screaming about every boss and everything. It was so funny and so much fun, and I just love that about it.
That's awesome.
So obviously we talked about Elden Ring. Do you have any other games that are like something that you come back to pretty consistently, especially a game that you really enjoy to stream or something of that nature?
Oh yeah, my big one is probably the biggest one, Street Fighter V, and continuing on, I'm sure with then I'm hoping to go to Evo this year. Street Fighter V was the first one. I've always loved Street Fighter and fighting games and stuff, but that was the first one I actually sat down and got really into like the competitive side of it and training up and like getting better, and I ranked up to I think I'm up to Super Silver, which is not even that crazy, but like was such a feat for me because it involved learning and getting really consistent with like all the kind of the basics and the ins and outs. I was maining Kuma, but now I main Ryu, which is kind of who I always mained back in the day. But actually learning, like, as opposed to just kind of sitting down with friends and just kind of going over and over again, not really like getting better. Like, this is the first one where I like actually was like watching YouTube tutorials and like learning, getting consistent with anti-airs and like learning how to be better than the basic, level of player, right? Like how to at least, like, if I'm at a party and no one there is as into it as me, like I'll just fucking destroy you because, I know all the little mechanics. I just know the basics. And then in terms of like more recent, like Hades has been a really good one to come back to. It's such a fun one to be able to, and I think, I like to think like such a big part of its success was we were all in pandemic and we were all also trying to just leave our home every day and waking up every day and having the same day every day and just
resonated for sure.
Yeah, I think that subconsciously was a huge hit, not just because it's an amazing game, but because I think we all were kind of doing that and connected with that feeling of like, all right, like every day was Groundhog Day during that time, essentially, and that's kind of Hades for you. But yeah, that's a great one in terms of just like, I just want to live in this, go back to this. And definitely, I've beaten FF7 like a million times. I love that we have the remake as well now, and that's also a world I absolutely love to continue to revisit. But I'm definitely the type of consumer that like, there was Overwatch and stuff like that, and there's always Street Fighter 5, but that's like a rarity. I'm usually just trying to check out the next new things. So right now, Horizon Forbidden West and Kirby, and I really want to play Tunic. But I'm also trying to take a break because of how much Elden Ring consumed my life and like do some other creative endeavors. But it's a good year for games, man. They all got held back till this year, so a lot of shit's coming out.
So I have one final question, and we have to ask it because it comes from one of our guys within Spawn Camp. He's part of the Build Bros podcast, which is all like Gundam and Gunpla and anime stuff. So he wanted to know what your favorite, if you had some favorite moments from Round Table of Gentlemen. After this question, I promise I will let you go.
We'll let you leave.
No, all good. I think, obviously the Who Shit in the Tub saga was so much fun, and the trial we did live at the Creek in the Cave, like all those live shows were so fun. I think for me, again, talking about like just kind of falling backwards and stuff or just doing stuff until I made a joke on Facebook. At one point I said, Holdenators ho, that's like what I call my fans now.
Mm-hmm.
And that turned into a thing, and like I think the first time, like, shout outs to Andrew Parker, who's awesome, who's out here doing stuff too. He was one of the first people. He like created a fan page for me on Facebook, and like that moment really stands out of like kind of thinking no one cared and no one was listening, and or if anything, like I was the annoying one, and to like have people step out and be like, no, like I think you're fucking hilarious on this show, and that definitely, and then just like the wide array of different talents we've had come through there, and Michael Che and I don't know, Mike Racine, Dan St. Germain, Annie Letterman, just all these people, and now watching them all just kind of become, Mark Norman, watching all those people like just become a big success, and having gotten to be with them in their shitty formative years, it's like I feel like that girlfriend or boyfriend that was like the one that really fucking matters because they were with you in those awful times, when you were just sucked and stunk and were poor. So yeah, I don't know. I just remember a lot of being hungover and but if I could make that room laugh, I mean, nothing felt better. That was just the best feeling in the world, because I got to be in a lot of situations where I made a lot of people that I respected and that I really just thought were incredible talents laugh really hard, and like that was like such a cool feeling for sure.
Yeah,
fucking awesome, dude.
That's awesome. So I cannot thank you enough for coming on the show. I really can't. This was a lot of fun. I could talk to you for hours. I'm sure Nick is in the same boat. Like we had this like page and a half full of questions and stuff, and I'm not at all upset that we didn't get to them. Not at all, because this was just a great conversation, and we greatly appreciate it. And with that being,
thanks so much for having me. This is a lot of fun, man, for sure.
Yeah. So where can the fine people find you at?
Please, Wizard the Bruiser, page 7, on anywhere you can find podcasts. Check me out there. Check out my band, The Cowmen, on Spotify. Check out, and especially, twitch.tv/Holdenators Ho. I stream Monday, Tuesday, Friday. Again, that's twitch.tv/Holdenators Ho.
Perfect.
Hell yeah.
Nick, where can people find you, even though they're already within this umbrella?
Yes, everybody, if you are interested in hearing my show, I am on WASD and Beyond. We are a just straight up video game podcast with every so often just movies and anime or TV shows we'll do episodes on, but mainly video games. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Beyond WASD, because we cannot get WASD Beyond for some reason. So, ass backwards. So, again, check us out there.
If you're finding this through YouTube, you can find my podcast, Diggity Podcast, over at Diggity Podcast on Instagram and Twitter. We go live every Thursday at 9:30 p.m., and the audio comes out nice and early on Fridays at 5 a.m. But with that, again, thank you, Holden, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, take care.